Okay, this is part 2 of my Europe trip series, and I will be going over my trip to Paris. Okay, so I think where we left off last time is Kara, Hannah, and I were leaving San Sebastian. We took the train to Paris, and the way that Hannah and I traveled around Europe is we used something called a Europass, which is just kind of like a ticket that you can buy ahead of time that gives you access to all the trains throughout Europe. And there's different options of what kind of tickets you can get, but we got a 4-country pass, which allowed us to travel for 10 days within a couple of months. Since our Europass was only for 10 days, we had to write in each of our travel days. And you can see the first one we wrote in is May 24th, and that's when we took our train to Paris. So we got to Paris around 8 p.m. at night, and we got off the metro, and our hostel was pretty close by, but as soon as we got there, we realized we were kind of in a horrible part of town, and I don't know if it was like the time that guys are getting out of the bar, but like the whole street was full of men who were like catcalling us and like grabbing at us, and we were really terrified. And we like got into the hostel pretty safely, and it just was kind of like a sketchy place. When we go in a room, it's really small to begin with, which is what we expected for a hostel, but it's probably like 10 by 11, and there's 3 bunk beds, and there's a cot. So there's supposed to be 6 people in there, but now they have, 7 spaces. But all the beds are taken up except for 2 of them, and there's 3 of us girls. And so Kara went in one bed, and Hannah and I actually had to share a bed. We knew we would be sharing the room with other people, but there was these 2 guys, and they were like covered in tattoos, and I don't know, I don't think they spoke English, and I don't know, I didn't talk to them at all, they were really scary. But we slept there that night, and the whole time we were trying to think of anywhere else we could stay, but it was getting kind of late, we didn't want to go exploring for hotels, so we just kind of slept with our purses on our arms and tried to fall asleep. So even though we hated our hostel and we were sleeping in a room with scary people, we made it through the night, and in the morning we got on the metro and headed into the city, and basically our whole day turned around, and it was amazing to step into Paris after seeing it in so many movies and reading about it in so many books, to finally see it for the first time. So one of the first places we went was the Louvre, which is one of the world's largest museums. We didn't go inside the first day, but we kind of explored the outside, and we got to see the famous glass pyramid that stands over the lobby. You can actually look in the pyramid, look down, and see people walking around in the museum. And it was designed by a very famous architect named I.M. Pei. And we kind of sat and watched people, tourists from all over the world, taking pictures. And there's a bunch of ducks that were sitting in the fountain, and people were feeding them and taking pictures of them also. The next place we went was the Arc de Triomphe, which is a giant monument that was commissioned by Napoleon to honor French soldiers. And it's just a really neat place to sit underneath because it's covered in a bunch of reliefs, and you can kind of just walk around for hours and discover all these little stories within the sculptures. At around lunchtime, we decided that we wanted to get some lunch and eat it under the Eiffel Tower. So we found a market, and we got some fresh brie, and there was another kind of cheese, and I don't know what it was, but it was so delicious. It had like spices on it, and it was kind of rolled in a circle. And the woman wrapped it in really pretty decorative paper. We got a bottle of wine and some little fancy pickles, which are much cheaper in Europe than they are in America. And we headed towards the Eiffel Tower. When I finally saw the Eiffel Tower for the first time, it was incredible. Everyone says this, but it is actually smaller in real life than you imagine it to be, I think. But it wasn't any less magnificent. It was just, I don't know, it's so iconic, so when you see it for the first time, it's just crazy. As soon as we got up close to it, you could really tell how huge it was once you were standing underneath and looking up through the middle.
Johnson had a picture in Paris. It's not how I picture it.
What's that?
Like the surroundings.
Really?
So we found a perfect little spot underneath the Eiffel Tower, and we ate our cheese and drank our wine, and we just kind of watched people around us. And I remember feeling really out of place because everyone in Paris is so fabulous and so beautiful, the men and the women. And I think, honestly, I stared at the people there as much as I did the buildings and the sculptures. After lunch at the Eiffel Tower, we went over to see Notre Dame, which is what the book Hunchback of Notre Dame is based off of. And it's this beautiful old Gothic cathedral. And we were really lucky because when we went there, they were actually having a service, and we got to hear, the organ music, and we got to see a service in French, and it was really cool. One of my favorite places I went in Paris was a bridge, and I'm really sorry, but I don't remember the name of it. I've been trying to look it up, but I'm not sure exactly where we were. We just kind of stumbled upon it while looking for the Eiffel Tower. But it had a chain link fence that ran along the side of it, and all over the fence, just glistening in the sun, were these little locks. And when you go up and look at the locks, you can see that all of them have names on it. It's like Johnny and Hannah forever or whatever, and it's couples put their name on the lock and they lock it onto the fence and then they throw the key into the river. And it's just this really romantic idea about love lasting forever. And the fence is just covered with them. And I don't know, some of them could be 20 years old, some of them are brand new. So that day I made a plan that one day, maybe 10 years from now, I'll go back to Paris, and me and whoever the guy is will put our lock on there and throw our key in the river also. The next morning, we got up early and went straight to the Louvre, which is a museum I've wanted to go to since I was a little girl. I've always loved art. If I hadn't been a filmmaker, I would have majored in studio art. They have some of the most famous pieces of artwork from all around the world. They have Greek, Roman, Etruscan, ancient Egyptian, just all kinds of stuff. And we got to see, amazing sculptures. We got to see the Venus de Milo, and of course, the Mona Lisa, which I really wanted to see. But they have it in a glass case, and there's so many people looking at it, you can't really get too close to it. But I still got to see it, and I was really happy. After wandering around the Louvre for a couple of hours, we went to the Luxembourg Gardens, which we actually just kind of stumbled upon, and it ended up being really beautiful, and I'm happy we found it. Hannah and Kara got some authentic Nutella crepes made by a street vendor. We had a couple of hours to kill because the last thing we wanted to do in Paris was go see the Eiffel Tower light up at night. So we spent some time at the Luxembourg Gardens just kind of drinking champagne and eating crepes.
It changed colors. Seriously, that bird yesterday got a little too close for comfort. Really fast.
So as it started to get dark, we headed back towards the Eiffel Tower, and we had to get there by 10 p.m. because that's when they light everything up. So as soon as the clock struck 10, the whole tower erupted with sparkling light, and it was amazing. It was just like the movies. It was exactly like I imagined. And you could see all the twinkling lights of people flashing their cameras at the bottom. So that evening was a perfect farewell to Paris, and we spent our last night there. And in the morning, Kira had to take a separate train back to Barcelona where she would be studying, and Hannah and I continued on to our next train to Munich, Germany.